The Seven Dials Mystery, Chapter 8. Visitors for Jimmy. We must at this point go back to some 20 minutes earlier, to a moment when Jimmy Thesiger, emerging from the mists of sleep, was conscious of a familiar voice speaking unfamiliar words. His sleep-ridden brain tried for a moment to cope with the situation, but failed. He yawned and rolled over again. "A young lady, sir, has called to see you." The voice was implacable. So prepared was it to go on repeating the statement indefinitely that Jimmy resigned himself to the inevitable. He opened his eyes and blinked. Stevens," he said. "Say that again?" "A young lady, sir, has called to see you." "Oh," Jimmy strove to grasp the situation. "Why?" "I couldn't say, sir." "No, I suppose not." "No," he thought it over. "I suppose you couldn't." Stevens swooped down upon a tray by the bedside. "I will bring you some fresh tea, sir. It's cold. You think that I ought to get up and do see the lady?" Stevens made no reply, but he held his back very stiff, and Jimmy read the signs correctly. "Oh, very well," he said. "I suppose I'd better." "She didn't give her name? No, sir?" She couldn't be by any possible chance my Aunt Jemima, could she? Because, if so, I'm damned if I'm going to get up. The lady, sir, could not possibly be anyone's aunt, I should say, unless the youngest of a large family." "Aha," said Jimmy. "Young and lovely. Is she? What kind is she?" "The young lady, sir, is most undoubtedly strictly calm ill-fought, if I may use the expression." "You may use it," said Jimmy graciously. "Your French pronunciation, Stevens, if I may say so, is very good, much better than mine." "I am gratified to hear it, sir. I have lately been taking a correspondence course in French." "Have you really? You're a wonderful chap, Stevens." Stevens smiled in a superior fashion and left the room. Jimmy lay trying to recall the names of any young and lovely girls, strictly come ill-fought, who might be likely to come and call upon him. Stevens re-entered with fresh tea, and as Jimmy sipped it, he felt a pleasurable curiosity. "You've given her the paper and all that, I hope, Stevens," he said. "I supplied her with the Morning Post and Punch, sir." A ring at the bell took him away. In a few minutes he returned. "Another young lady, sir." "What?" Jimmy clutched his head. "Another young lady. She declines to give her name, sir, but says her business is important." Jimmy stared at him. "This is damned odd, Stevens. Damned odd. Oh, look here. What time did I come home last night?" "Just upon 5 o'clock, sir." "And was how was I?" "Just a little cheerful, sir, nothing more. Inclined to sing Rule Britannia." "What an extraordinary thing," said Jimmy. "Rule Britannia, eh?" "I cannot imagine myself in a sober state ever singing Rule Britannia. Some latent patriotism must have emerged under the stimulus of Udged, a couple too many. I was celebrating at the Mustard and Cress, I remember. Not nearly such an innocent spot as it sounds, Stevens." He paused. "I was wondering, yes, sir? I was wondering whether under the aforementioned stimulus I'd put an advertisement in a newspaper, asking for a nursery governess or something of that sort." Stevens coughed, 2 girls turning up. "Right. It looks odd. I shall eschew the Mustard and Cress in future." "That's a good word, Stevens, eschew. I met it in a crossword the other day and took a fancy to it." Whilst he was talking, Jimmy was rapidly appareling himself. At the end of 10 minutes he was ready to face his unknown guests. As he opened the door of his sitting room, the first person he saw was a dark, slim girl who was totally unknown to him. She was standing by the mantelpiece, leaning against it. Then his glance went on to the big, leather-covered armchair, and his heart missed a beat. "Lorraine?" It was she who rose and spoke first, a little nervously. "You must be very surprised to see me. But I had to come. I'll explain in a minute. This is Lady Eileen Brent. Bundle, that's what I'm usually known as. You probably heard of me from Bill Eversley." "Oh, rather, of course I have," said Jimmy, endeavoring to cope with the situation. "I say, do sit down and let's have a cocktail or something." But both girls declined. "A matter of fact," continued Jimmy, "I'm only just out of bed." "That's what Bill said," remarked Bundle. "I told him I was coming round to see you, and he said you wouldn't be up." "I'm up now," said Jimmy encouragingly. "It's about Gary," said Lorraine, "and now about Ronnie." "What do you mean by, and now about Ronnie?" "He was shot yesterday." "What?" cried Jimmy. Bundle told her story for the second time. Jimmy listened like a man in a dream. "Old Ronnie shot," he murmured. "What is this damned business?" He sat down on the edge of a chair, thinking for a minute or two, and then spoke in a quiet, level voice. There's something I think I ought to tell you, said Bundle encouragingly. It was on the day Gary Wade died. On the way over to break the news to you, he nodded at Lorraine. In the car, Ronnie said something to me. That is to say, he started to tell me something. There was something he wanted to tell me, and he began about it. And then he said he was bound by a promise and couldn't go on. Bound by a promise, said Lorraine thoughtfully. That's what he said. Naturally, I didn't press him after that. But he was odd, darned odd all through. I got the impression then that he suspected, well, foul play. I thought he'd tell the doctor so, but no, not even a hint. So I thought I'd been mistaken. And afterwards, with the evidence and all, well, it seemed such a very clear case. I thought my suspicions had been all bosh. But you think Ronnie still suspected? Asked Bundle. Jimmy nodded. That's what I think now. Why, none of us have seen anything of him since. I believe he was playing a lone hand, trying to find out the truth about Jerry's death, and what's more, I believe he did find out. That's why the devils shot him. And then he tried to send word to me, but could only get out those 2 words. 7 dials, said Bundle, and shivered a little. 7 dials, said Jimmy gravely. At any rate, we've got that to go on with. Bundle turned to Lorraine. You were just going to tell me? Oh, yes. First, about the letter, she spoke to Jimmy. Gary left a letter. Lady Eileen, Bundle found it. She explained the circumstances in a few words. Jimmy listened, keenly interested. This was the first he had heard of the letter. Lorraine took it from her bag and handed it to him. He read it, then looked across at her. This is where you can help us. What was it Gary wanted you to forget? Lorraine's brows wrinkled a little in perplexity. It's so hard to remember exactly now. Opened a letter of Jerry's by mistake. It was written on cheap sort of paper, I remember, and very illiterate handwriting. It had some address and 7 dials at the head of it. I realized it wasn't for me, so I put it back in the envelope without reading it. Sure, asked Jimmy, very gently. Lorraine laughed for the first time. I know what you think, and I admit that women are curious. But you see, this didn't even look interesting. It was a kind of list of names and dates. Names and dates, said Jimmy thoughtfully. Gary didn't seem to mind much, continued Lorraine. He laughed. He asked me if I had ever heard of the Mafia, and then said it would be queer if a society like the Mafia started in England. But that kind of secret society didn't take on much with English people. Our criminals, he said, haven't got a picturesque imagination. Jimmy pursed up his lips into a whistle. I'm beginning to see, he said. 7 dials must be the headquarters of some secret society. He says in his letter to you, he thought it rather a joke to start with. But evidently it wasn't a joke, he says as much. And there's something else. His anxiety that you should forget what he'd told you. There can be only one reason for that. If that society suspected that you had any knowledge of its activity, you too would be in danger. Gerald realized the peril, and he was terribly anxious for you. He stopped. Then he went on quietly. I rather fancy that we're all going to be in danger if we go on with this. If, cried Bundle indignantly. I'm talking to you too. It's different for me. I was poor old Ronnie's pal. He looked at Bundle. You've done your bit. You've delivered the message he sent me. Oh, for God's sake, keep out of it, you and Lorraine. Bundle looked questioningly at the other girl. Her own mind was definitely made up, but she gave no indication of it just then. She had no wish to push Lorraine Wade into a dangerous undertaking. But Lorraine's small face was alight at once with indignation. You say that? Do you think for 1 minute I'd be contented to keep out of it when they killed Gary, my own dear Gary, the best and dearest and kindest brother any girl ever had? The only person belonging to me I had in the whole world? Jimmy cleared his throat uncomfortably. Lorraine, he thought, was wonderful. Simply wonderful. Look here, he said awkwardly. You mustn't say that. About being alone in the world, all that rot. You've got lots of friends, only too glad to do what they can. See what I mean? It is possible that Lorraine did, for she suddenly blushed, and to cover her confusion began to talk nervously. That's settled, she said. I'm going to help. Nobody's going to stop me. And so am I, of course, said Bundle. They both looked at Jimmy. Yes, he said slowly. Yes, quite so. They looked at him inquiringly. I was just wondering, said Jimmy, how we were going to begin.